Today in Lesson 6, we're going to be looking at dividing with mixed numbers. So the first problem says Carly has 4.5 walls left to paint in order for all the bedrooms in her house to have the same color paint. However, she has used almost all of her paint and only has 5/6 of a gallon left. How much paint can she use on each wall in order to have enough to paint the remaining walls? So in this problem, you really have to read carefully because the order in which it's written is not the order in which the division problem will be written. So if you think about it, you have 5/6 of a gallon of paint that you are splitting up amongst 4.5 walls. So the 5/6 is going to be our dividend, and the 4.5 is going to be our divisor. Whenever you're dividing with a mixed number, you can't divide it with that mixed number as is. What you have to do first is you have to change the mixed number into a fraction where the numerator is greater than the denominator. So in order to do this, I'm going to pull to the side to show my work. My denominator is not going to change. It stays the same. I'm then going to take my denominator and multiply it by the whole number. So I'll do 2 times 4. I always write the 8 above here, or the number I get from that there, so that I know that it's not the end step. I then also have to add on the numerator that's there. So I would do 8 plus 1 to get 9. So 4 1/2 is the same thing as 9/2. So what that means is I'm just going to rewrite this problem using the 9/2. So it's going to now turn into 5/6 divided by 9/2. We have our two methods that we've seen for dividing. We have our common denominator method and we have our multiplying by the reciprocal method. I'm going to do this both ways. Again, you can choose whichever method you like best, but just for here I'm going to do both since I think it's usually half and half liking each method. So for the common denominator method, which you'll see me abbreviate a lot on homework keys as CD, common denominator, we have to find a number that both 6 and 2 can go into. Whenever I'm doing a common denominator, I start by looking at the smaller of the two numbers and seeing if it can go into the other one. So can 2 go into 6? Yes. So 6 would be my common denominator. So what that means is the 5/6 will stay the same. And I have to turn the 9/2 into 6. So 2 times 3 is what gets me 6. So I'll do 9 times 3 to get 27. So the 9/2 is going to be replaced with 27/6. Remember, with common denominators, since the denominators are the same, we can cancel them out since they're just going to give us 1. We put our first numerator, 5, on top of our second denominator, 27, or numerator, excuse me, and we look to see if it's in simplest form. At this point, 5/27 is simplest form, so our answer would be 5/27 of a gallon per wall. Now, if we're going to use the other method, our reciprocal method, what we would do is, of course, rewrite the problem as is. But now, instead of dividing by 9/2, we're going to take that 5/6, which the dividend always stays the same, and we're going to change the division problem into a multiplication problem, and we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of 9/2. And remember, for a reciprocal, you just flip the two numbers around. So the 2 becomes our numerator, the 9 becomes our denominator. I'm going to stop and see if there's any cross-simplifying I can do here. Again, if you just want to multiply across your numerators, across your denominators, and then simplify, that's fine too. But I'm going to look and see that 2 and 6 can both be divided by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 6 divided by 2 is 3. I multiply across. 5 times 1 is 5. 3 times 9 is 27. So notice I've gotten the same answer that I got over here, which I should. Okay, so again, the important piece is that we're turning the mixed number into a fraction first. Okay, a couple more examples. We have 2/5 divided by 3 4/7. The first step is going to be to change our mixed number into a fraction. So again, your denominator stays the same. You multiply your denominator and your whole number. So 7 times 3 is 21, and then I have to add my numerator of 4. 21 plus 4 is 25. So I'm going to rewrite the problem now that I've changed the mixed number into a fraction. I'm going to do these two. Actually, I'll do this first one with the reciprocal method, and I'll do the second one with common denominator. So instead of dividing by 25/7, I am going to take my 2/5, keeping my dividend the same, changing my division into multiplication, and finding the reciprocal of 25/7, which is 7/25. Looking for cross-simplifying, 2 and 25 do not have a common factor, nor do 5 and 7, so I'll just multiply across. 2 times 7 is 14, and 5 times 25 is 125. So my answer would be 14/125. That is in simplest form. Okay, for the second one, we've actually kind of already done problems with whole numbers. Remember, you just have to put your whole number over 1. So this is going to be 4/5 divided by 3/1. I'm going to do the common denominator method here. I have to find a common denominator for 1 and 5. Anytime 1 is your denominator, you can just use the other number as your common denominator. So the 4/5 will stay the same. I have to pull to the side and turn 3/1 into fifths. 1 times 5 is 5. 3 times 5 is 15. That turns into 15/5. When you have a common denominator, you're going to divide them and just get 1, so they cancel each other out. I'm going to put my first numerator, 4, over my second numerator, 15, and my answer would be 4/15. Now, you don't have to use one of these specific methods. You can choose whichever method you want. The focus of today is just to remember to turn those mixed numbers into fractions first and then divide. And if you do have a whole number, just remember it goes over 1.